What's up, Earth Rockers? It's time for everybody's favorite game. The game that everybody thinks of when they think of Castlevania, or the Castlevania game that everybody's played. It's Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Now you might think, or maybe you don't think, depending on how well you know me or how much of my other videos you've listened to, probably not many. I didn't mean that little prelude as a way to say, oh, everybody loves this game, but I think it's bad. No, everybody loves this game, and I think this game is really good. I think Symphony of the Night is definitely, like, in the top 10, maybe the top 5 best Castlevania games of all time. For all the reasons that everybody always says. I'm not really going to get into that too much until we get into the game itself, because just on the off chance that you're not familiar with this game, you're not really going to know what I'm talking about, and it'd be better to wait until you can see it. For what I'm going to use this first part of the game to talk about is a little bit like what this run is and why this run exists. So when I first went through the series, I played a game that was made after Symphony of the Night called Harmony of Dissonance. And I ended up really liking Harmony of Dissonance. And part of what I did with Harmony of Dissonance was that, well, I liked Harmony of Dissonance, and one of the issues with Harmony of Dissonance that I had was that it was too easy. So I went back and I kind of gave myself some extra stipulations, and I'm like, well, I'll play on hard mode where I take double damage, I'm not going to use healing items, I'm going to try to, like, work harder to make the game difficult. And then after I did that, I went back and said to myself, well, you know, I never did that with Symphony of the Night. So this run is basically like an arbitrary stipulation challenge run of Symphony of the Night, but now I have to be quiet.
That I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves.
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you!
As I stammered out earlier, an arbitrary stipulation challenge run of Symphony of the Night. And what that means is that I sort of decided to do several different things, like I'm going to beat Symphony of the Night, but I'm going to give myself like X, Y, and Z requirements to make the game harder and therefore make the game more engaging. Because as much as I like Symphony of the Night, I do agree with a commonly leveled criticism at it, which is that it's like too easy. I think that's true. I think Symphony of the Night as a game is too easy. So I thought, well, what if I went in and I tried to kind of fix that myself by making the game harder of my own accord? And the consequences of that decision actually begin here in the prologue, because this prologue is not just like a story thing, it's not just there to introduce you to the game and to what's going on, but this prologue also affects, sorry about my microphone, affects Alucard's starting stats. So if I beat Dracula with no sub-weapon, Alucard gets a buffed strength, and strength is the most important stat in Symphony of the Night, in my opinion, that Alucard is going to have. Also, if I beat this guy without taking any damage, I also get an HP buff, which is less important. Really, what matters most is beating Dracula without a sub-weapon so that I can get the strength buff. I could get an additional strength buff if I beat the opening, if I beat this prologue under a certain time limit too, but that time limit can only be reached if you skip the intro cutscene dialogue, which I decided I did not want to do. So there I got everything I wanted. And so what are the stipulations that make something like, you know, these minuscule buffs that you get from the prologue so important? Well, I decided I would try to beat Symphony of the Night with no armor. I didn't want to put any armor on. I decided I wanted to beat it with, and I also decided that I wanted to beat it, like, on a direct route to Dracula. So that means, like, no, like, going out of my way to get optional bosses done, or going out of my way to get, like, heart expansions, or energy tanks, or anything like that, buffs. I don't quite stay 100% true to that goal. There are two things that I go out of my way to get, but both of those things that I go out of my way to get are items that reduce my defense. The Ring of Ares in the Catacombs, and then the... is that going to be picked up? Someone's playing a saxophone out there. The Ring of Ares in the Catacombs, and then the Osafune Katana in the Reverse Caverns. And if you don't know what those are, don't worry, I'll explain when I get there. But they're both items that are going to reduce my defense, but increase the damage that I deal. Which is exactly the kind of trade-off that I would like to make the run faster and also more fun. Because one of the reasons that Symphony of the Night is so easy, arguably one of the main reasons, is in like a casual playthrough, is that Alucard is so tanky. Like Alucard can take so many hits in Symphony of the Night before he dies. Like that's kind of like the big difference. And part of the reason that's the case has to do with a fundamental difference in the gameplay style of Symphony of the Night, which is like all a consequence of the very basic difference between Alucard's weapon and like the Belmont's whip. And this is a really important thing to talk about, even though it is very simple. So in Castlevania games, typically the protagonist is a Belmont and he has a whip. And the whip means that basically you have much more of an ability to deal damage without taking damage. Like you can deal damage from a safe distance really easily. The trade-off for the Belmonts is that the whip has like a wind-up time, which means that you have to be like strategic, you have to make sure you maintain that distance, you have to like plan ahead a little bit in what you're going to do. But the benefit is that you have a longer range, you have more ability to, if you like plan out your attacks, if you think about it more carefully, to attack safely. Alucard is the first protagonist in the series, basically. Not the first to not have a whip, that would be, I guess, Maria. Or Sypha or Grant or something, but Alucard has a sword instead of a whip. That means that you have a shorter range, but the trade-off is that he swings basically instantly, as you can see. So that makes that both increases the pace of the gameplay, and also, because he doesn't have this really long-range option, means he's more likely to take damage, which I think is part of why they made him so tanky in the first place, because in the natural course of gameplay, he's more prone to taking damage because he has to be closer when he attacks.
I've come to put an end to this.
Still befriending mortals. I'll not ask you to return to our side, but I demand you cease your attack.
I will not.
You shall regret those words. We will meet again.
But as I mentioned, I think there's a general consensus among people who play this game that the extra durability they gave Alucard was like an overcorrection for that quirk, that like aspect of his combat. So that's basically what this run is. It's like no armor, no like going and getting a bunch of energy tanks to make myself overpowered. Use the Ring of Ares almost as soon as I can. Use the Osafune Katana almost as soon as I can. Or like as soon as makes sense to do in the context of the run. Yeah. So one of the consequences of this is that there's a lot of content in this game you're not going to see. If you want to see like everything in the game, I have plenty of other videos on my channel that show that. I actually have way too many Symphony of the Night videos because I played like 3 different versions of it. And like uploaded multiple videos for each version. But this is a little bit more like streamlined, a little bit more me just going through what I would consider to be like the highlights of the game, and kind of getting to the ending at a more brisk pace. And I'll talk a little bit more about why the concept for this run was attractive to me, but that's going to involve things happening later on, so I'm not really going to talk about that yet. For now, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about Symphony of the Night generally. Like, this game... Symphony of the Night is an extremely interesting game. Like, there's a reason why this game has endured. There's a reason why there are people who are still playing, like, Symphony of the Night randomizers to this day. It's because the game is, like... It's kind of this contradiction, because it's very complicated, but at the same time, it's, like, at its baseline, it's very simple. Like, Alucard doesn't have, like, there's no soul system like an Aria of Sorrow, there's no, like, magic system or like DSS system, like in Harmony of Dissonance or Circle of the Moon, like most of the run, you're just Alucard with your sword and your sub-weapon, and you're just running around like slashing enemies. So the baseline gameplay is very simple, but there's just lots of little like quirks and little like tricks. Like that, what I'm doing right there, probably the most overpowered thing Richter Alucard can do in the early game is that like 4 projectile magic attack called Tetra Spirit, which draws on his MP bar, his magic bar, which, to be honest, like Alucard's already so overpowered, I think magic could be completely cut from the game and it would be totally fine. But it also does like, it gives you a few more tools to deal with. It does seem like a few more tools to deal with a couple of tricky spots that, like, even Alucard can't deal with that easily, which I'll try to point out when they crop up. But more generally, I would say what it does is it kind of feeds into the overall like tone that the game is going for, and it's a tone that makes the game more accessible in a certain sense, but also kind of... Hang on a second. As I said, more accessible in a certain sense, but also has like downsides. And what I mean is that, like, if you think about Castlevania in its larger like conceptual form, it's like conceptual identity. It's like you are a human being, you're one guy with a whip who's going up against like the whole army of the dead. You're alone in like a desolate, not desolate, but you're alone in like a very dangerous environment. And then you have to fight to survive, and that's kind of like why the difficulty in those in the early Castlevania games is like so important, because that makes it feel like Dracula's Castle feels perilous, it feels dangerous, it feels like what you feel what the game developers wanted you to feel, which, by the way, is why game difficulty is important and why that's like a deliberate choice, because how difficult a game is like fundamentally changes the way that you interact with it and can convey feelings that narrative can't.
I've come to destroy this castle.
Then we have the same purpose. I'll trust you for now. I'm Maria. Who are you?
Alucard.
Not the talkative type, I can see. Well, perhaps we'll meet again. If you live that long. Farewell.
Whereas Alucard in Symphony of the Night, the fact that the game is relatively easy is almost like thematically fitting, because like this is Dracula's castle, it is like a hostile environment to Alucard nominally, but Alucard is also the son of Dracula, so it's kind of like it is a place that he's sort of like energetically aligned with, so to speak. So it makes sense that he would be more comfortable navigating it and that he wouldn't be as threatened. So the lower difficulty meshes with like the new style of gameplay where you're spending a lot more time between points of sanctuary, just kind of wandering around exploring, because you also don't want to make the player character too squishy, because that also discourages exploration, so I get that. There's lots of reasons to make this game relatively easy and to make Alucard relatively tanky. There's thematic reasons, there's like gameplay reasons, there's like genre reasons. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily like unequivocally a bad thing, but for someone like me who plays these games over and over again, and for whom part of the appeal of these games is like improving at them and getting better at them and overcoming certain challenges, the fact that Symphony of the Night was so easy was always like a problem that I had with it. And I tried to work around it in Harmony of Dissonance, I tried to work around it in Aria of Sorrow, although I would say neither of those games, at least Aria of Sorrow, like definitely is harder than Symphony of the Night at baseline, but now I'm kind of getting sidetracked. All this is to say that basically for my own personal entertainment and to try to create a different kind of run, I did this challenge thing. And also to say that, like, Symphony of the Night is not... Like, the game being good in spite of its low difficulty at baseline, mostly boils down to how Alucard feels to play, And also comes back to like the immediacy of like the short-range sword weapon. Like, it's just really fun to play Symphony of the Night. It's fun to just like run around in the castle and jump around and attack, and everything feels really fluid and fast and responsive, and you feel powerful. Like, Symphony of the Night is really, really good at giving you that feeling. Whereas like Castlevania games sort of like try to make you feel like reward you for like cleverness and for pattern recognition and for like learning them. Symphony of the Night just tries to make you feel like you are Alucard, you are the son of Dracula. Symphony of the Night's also the first game to have a doppelganger fight that feels a little bit more like fair, where, I mean, ultimately, just like the doppelganger fight in Castlevania X68, it is just a matter of, like, exploiting a quirk of the AI, where what's happening there is, like, I'll jump, and then the AI, because I'm jumping, thinks it has to jump after me, but because I know the AI is about to do that, then I, like, turn around right after it jumps and then slash it in midair. So I'm just, like, anticipating it over and over again, and the reason that I'm not pushing it, that I didn't push it all the way into the corner, is because if the doppelganger gets cornered, he'll do like a bat charge attack and like knock you all around and fuck you up. So I just had to wait to let him get back towards the middle of the room to avoid that. So what's nice about doing a no armor run is that it creates a more... The increased power of the enemies you encounter becomes more relevant, whereas if you didn't give yourself this stipulation for this run, what you could do in Symphony of the Night is, like, I would say at about the middle point of the game, you can buy a piece of armor from the in-game merchant, who we're going to come visit in a moment here, called the Diamond Plate, which gives you a huge defensive buff and defangs definitely the rest of the normal castle and arguably a lot of the reverse castle, although there are exceptions to that, which I'll talk about when I get to the reverse castle. I'm going to have a lot to say about the reverse castle when we get there. But basically, the not equipping yourself with armor, and in fact equipping yourself with things that reduce your defense to counteract the defense you've gained by leveling up, makes the game feel more dangerous as it goes along, more of a conventional difficulty curve, which is good, because Symphony of the Night, like a lot of other RPGs, or games with RPG elements, games where the player character gets more powerful, did have sort of a reverse difficulty curve where like it got easier as it got along instead of as it went along instead of getting harder, and this reverses that to a certain extent.
Oh, it's you, Master Alucard. What do you need?
I need your help.
Young Master, I cannot aid one who opposes the Master.
You won't go unrewarded.
Really? In that case, just tell me what you need.
Of course, that being said,
Thank you. Farewell for now.
the tools that I'm going to get that are going to lower my defense are also going to increase my attack power, which means that basically I am going to have more tools to finish encounters quickly, but it also means that I'm going to get punished harder for mistakes if I make them. And again, I'm gonna have to talk about that in more depth when I get to those parts. One thing I will say about Symphony of the Night is that, like, Alucard gets a lot more fun to control once you get the double jump. So, like, during this first phase of the game, when you're just kind of, like, single jumping around, it feels kind of bad on replays. Pretty minor complaint, because I think I'm going to get the double jump within, I don't know. I know it's going to be after the next level, so it's not going to be too much longer, but still, it's just something that I noticed. I hated fighting these fucking ectoplasms. I like... That one I could get. This one I fuck up because I think what I meant to do was, like... I don't know what I meant to do. I meant to hit him and I didn't. That's really the best way that I could describe that. The reason that I'm attacking these headless swordsmen the way that I am is because, you notice with the knights, I was like jumping, throwing holy water, and then continuing to jump right over them. That's because the knights don't walk backwards fast enough to intercept you if you do that. But if I were to try to just jump straight over the headless swordsmen while throwing holy water at them, then if you get close enough to them horizontally, even if you're above them, they will wind up like a stab attack, and the consequence of that is that you end up like landing on top of their sword, pretty much. So I have to do an awkward, like, throw the holy water, or like jump, throw the holy water, then like air control away to make sure they get hit by it instead of just maintaining my forward momentum, which is a little bit annoying, but not the end of the world. I just kind of threw that holy water just in case. Like, I didn't really feel like stopping and fighting that guy. The only reason I even care is because sometimes that guy can drop a cutlass, I think, which is an upgrade on the weapon that I have right now, and if I get it here, then I can like avoid doing one extra thing in the chapel. That is the only things I'm going to go out of my way to get in this run are things like better weapons, because that just makes the game more fun. And then like the Ring of Ares. That's pretty much it. Pacing. Pacing is important. Pacing is so important in video games. And I want to point out like a really, really important element of Symphony of the Night relating to pacing. I think I was alt-tabbed. I think I alt-tabbed like sending messages at this point. Because I didn't know if this is going to be like the run or not. Something that Alucard can do that's like super important, which I actually can't do here, so I should have talked about this at a different point. That would have been really cool if I stayed on the ledge after the last slash, but I didn't really know if that was going to connect. Something that Alucard can do that's really important is that Alucard does this thing where he like that right there it is, where it's like you do a falling slash and then you land and then you immediately follow up like the falling slash, the downward slash that just finished, with like a regular horizontal slash, because landing on the floor cancels like the cooldown between attacks that would otherwise be incurred when you slash your sword. So you can do these like 1-2 swings really fast, and it basically takes enemies that die in 2 hits and means that they die in almost as much time as it would have taken you to do 1 hit. So that's like such a... And it's so interesting. This is like what's so interesting about video games, how like a tiny little detail like that can completely feel how a game changes to play. Just like the ability to do that one little like trick to make things go faster is so important, because when you play as Alucard in Dawn of Sorrow, he can't do that. He doesn't have like a downward slash. Well, no, he does, but like the timing for it is different, I want to say. There was some quirk with Dawn of Sorrow Alucard that meant that it didn't like work the same way. That's something when I talk about like what makes this game good at a fundamental level and why I think everybody who plays this game likes it. It's just that it feels so much fun to just play.
So, we meet again, Alucard.
It seems so.
As friendly as ever, I see. It's strange. This castle is different than I remember it.
This castle is a creature of chaos. It may take many incarnations.
So I can't trust my memories, huh? Oh well, I'll do my best. Good luck.
Maria. The characterization of Maria in Symphony of the Night is very interesting. Maria, of course, like Richter, made her first appearance in Rondo of Blood. In Rondo of Blood... Oh, actually, I want to point something out here. Like, this part here on the staircase is where, like, it's so fun to do, like, the 3 attacks to hit these guys. So, like, jump and then swing and then air control away and then, like, try to, like, dip in and, like, swing again. Like, this is another example of what I'm talking about when I talk about the game just being so much fun to control. Like, Alucard is so, like... He's so fast and so, like, fluid. And there's just something about, like... So there's something about the movement in Symphony of the Night that just isn't present anywhere else. Like, because in Aria of Sorrow, Soma Cruz has the same, like, short-range sword attack type stuff, but, like, there's just something different. I don't know what it is. I don't know if, like, if Soma doesn't, like, hang in the air for as long as Alucard does. Maybe that's the difference. Or maybe just, like, the level design doesn't let you take advantage of it in the same way, but, like... And plus, of course, you know, Symphony of the Night has the advantage of being on the PS1, meaning that it looks fucking great and it sounds fucking great. Like, that's the other big thing, is that Alucard's sprite is, like, the coolest thing ever put in a video game. Like, they made a video game where it's, like, you play as, like, an evil vampire... Not evil, but, like, a dark vampire prince And then they went, like, all out with the aesthetic and with all the little, like, touches that would really make you, like... I don't want to say you really feel like Alucard, but you do kind of really feel like Alucard in Symphony of the Night. And the environments are good. Like, even the chapel, which, like... I don't really like the music for the chapel. I don't like the, like, more slower-paced atmospheric music, which is a lot of what the Igavania soundtracks are. Symphony of the Night is no exception, but, like, I mean, can anybody with a sane mind, like, complain about how this level looks? Like, this game is just fucking, like, this game is fucking gorgeous, really. And the biggest complaints that I have with Symphony of the Night, like, that's kind of what this run is attempting to address those complaints. Or the two biggest complaints that I have with Symphony of the Night are, like, it's too easy, and the reverse castle is boring, which I'll talk about more when we get to it. And that's, like, kind of what this run is a way of, like, well, instead of just complaining about it, why don't I just do, like, my own run that tries to remedy that? I really like this boss room, because I think the painting is cool, but I don't really like this boss very much, because I feel like... Well, really, the cold, hard truth is just that I'm not good at doing Tetra Spirit. Like, it might seem like I'm okay at it, but, like, I've already fucked up Tetra Spirit, like, 3 or 4 times in this run. You maybe just didn't notice it. If I hadn't, then this fight would have been over a lot faster, but oh well.
Impressive.
Oh, look who it is.
You're very strong.
What is it you want? You didn't come here to tell me that.
You're right. Do you know the name Richter Belmont?
Of the Belmont clan? Of course, but...
He disappeared about a year ago, and I'm sure he's here. If you see him, please let me know.
As you wish, my lady.
Thank you. So, you do know how to be a gentleman.
Aha. I guess I could probably live without all these, like, Maria interruptions, too. You know what's funny is that, like... So people refer to Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, and, like, all the, almost all the games that came after it as Metroidvanias, right? And Metroidvania, of course, is now, like, a larger, genre designation, but just to keep my comments to this game in particular, one of the things about, like, Metroid games, speaking as somebody who's also a really big fan of Metroid, is, like, Metroid games are about isolation. They're about being alone in a place where really the only things around you are, like, remnants of dead civilizations. You come in, like, after the things have all already happened. So if I was to, like... The things about Symphony... There's lots of things about Symphony of the Night that make it not feel like a Metroid game to me, despite the fact that I admit that descriptor is, superficially accurate. Like, you unlock exploration tools that take you through a bunch of blue rooms. The fact that, like, you're constantly talking to people in this game, and in, like, in Aria of Sorrow and in Dawn of Sorrow, too, kind of makes it feel... That's, like, one of the biggest tonal differences, really, between this game and Metroid. Also, these games are just, like, more dramatic in general, I guess I'd say. You know, less mysterious. I guess Symphony of the Night, there's a bit of a mystery at the start, which is kind of hard to appreciate because, like... I mean, I actually didn't know how the game was going to go when I first played it, but I don't remember being particularly surprised by any of what happens in it. I don't know. I don't know. Now I have the double jump, which means things get a lot more fun. Because the double jump is fucking cool. Look at that shit. That's what I'm talking about. Any opportunity, like, any opportunity in any video game where you get to, like, dive kick is always cool, pretty much. And I wish there were more, like, practical combat applications for it. Not just in Symphony of the Night, but in other games. The only game that I can think of that, like, where, like, you have to dive kick and bounce off of someone's head is in Order of Ecclesia in the hard mode Barlow fight. Where, like, there's an attack that you can't dodge unless you, like, double jump and then jump up and bounce off of his head, like Mario, which is pretty funny. Where am I going? Oh, actually, I am going to get an energy tank here, and then I'm also going to get out of the elevator. Okay. I'm also going to get... I guess I lied. I'm also going to go a little bit out of my way to get some rings to sell to get a better weapon. Like, the only things that I wanted to, like, do to improve my chances in this run were just, like, better offense, not better defense. And again, that's like a pacing thing, where it's just, like, it's just more fun to have stronger weapons. That's just the fact. Like, I think I've said this before several times in these videos, but I'll just make this point again. Like, fighting the same enemy for, like 5 minutes, like, having to hit, like, a fucking skeleton 12 times, or having to hit a knight, like, 18 times, like you have to do in fucking Circle the Moon to kill it. Like, yes, that's difficult. That's harder than just having to hit it 4 times or 6 times, but, like, it's not fun for me. So... I always prefer challenges that are more like, you're really dangerous, but then you're also really fragile. Which is why I was attracted to the concept of, like, no deaths and then no damages in particular for the classic games, because that's, like, the ultimate expression of that, is, like, pretending, basically, that if you get hit once, you'll die. What exactly do I do here? I don't actually remember where I'm going now. Oh, I'm going to the Coliseum, right? One of the unfortunate things about having to do the full game is that, like, I was really hoping, or it would have been nice, rather, to never have to go to the caverns, but you do have to go to the catacombs to get the spike breaker armor to get to the reverse castle, which is the only piece of armor I'm going to put on in the whole game. I am going to put on the spike breaker armor to run through spikes, because you don't have any other choice, as far as I know. And then I'm going to take it right off again, which you'll see. Yeah, no shields either. I thought about letting myself use shields because I was like, well, you know, they're projectiles you can block with, but I never found any fucking use for, like, blocking projectiles in Symphony of the Night. I'm sure there are uses for it. Like, on the Slogra Gaben fight at the very beginning, you can block Gaben's fireballs with a shield, but, like, fuck it. Fuck it, I don't care. I mean, shields give you armor, right? This is supposed to be like a no armor run. Yeah, I'm not intentionally avoiding energy tanks. Like, if an energy tank, like, crops up, then I'll take it. But let me see. Do I skip the broadsword here? No, I don't think I do. So what's gonna happen is I actually am gonna go out of my way to get the broadsword, which is the next, like, weapon upgrade. But I actually decided to do this because the broadsword also gives you, or like the room with the broadsword also gives you an onyx, which, is a gem you can sell, and that helps you reach a certain, it's gonna help me buy, like, the weapon I want, and then also the accessory I want, which is the Ring of Pale, which, like, is just a strength increase. And I forgot to actually mention why strength is so important specifically. Strength is not just important because it increases your damage, but there's also, like, strength, break points you have to reach. I don't remember how it works exactly, but, like, every weapon has a particular, like, damage stat attached to it. And if your strength stat is lower than the damage stat, then you get, like, a penalty to your damage beyond just, like, you doing less damage. It's like you can equip you can be in a position where, like, you can equip a weapon with a higher attack stat, but, like, your overall damage will go down if your strength is not high enough. So it's really important, like, every single point of strength is really important because that helps you reach strength breakpoints to make sure that, like, when you get a weapon upgrade, it's actually a weapon upgrade and not, like, not an upgrade. So that's why it was so important for me to make sure that I did the prologue without a sub-weapon, and that's also why I really want, the Ring of Pales from the... Oh, I am skipping it. Okay, never mind. Good. I'm actually really glad that I'm deciding to skip the broadsword because that would be kind of contrary to the spirit of the run, which is to, like, sort of do a beeline for Dracula as much as possible and not, like, go out of my way to, like, buff myself up a bunch beforehand. Come on, Shovatar. There you go. I like this music. Symphony of the Night soundtrack, like I think I mentioned, is hit or miss for me, but I really like this track. It's very weird, but it's also very good. Look at how things fucking explode when they die. Like, this game is such a masterpiece of, like, visual design. Like, Alucard looks so cool, everything is so fast and responsive, enemies, like, explode when they die. It's, like, it's so good. The devil's in the details for these things. So we're coming up on a boss fight here that's, like, if you're doing, like, a casual Symphony of the Night run, this is the first boss fight that I think could actually, like, credibly kill you. And I fuck it up for reasons I'll talk about when it starts.
Open hell's gate. Come forth, my servants.
The scent of your blood. You're a Belmont.
Crush this flea who invades my castle.
So I fuck up here. This is gonna sound like the dumbest thing in the world, but I forgot that I could double jump. Like, there was a moment where, like, I forgot whether or not I had, like, the double jump yet or not. Because I've been, like, I'd done several runs where, like, I'd stopped after the early game for one reason or another.
I'm certain that was a Belmont. So he says he's the lord of this castle.
And then, as you can see, the fight itself is mostly just about, like, properly air controlling and throwing holy water. A little bit, like, cheap, but did you see how much fucking damage that Minotaur was doing to me? That was actually kind of scary. Plus, I went in already hurt because of the fucking Blaze Master, so.
What can I do for you?
And I think this is.
Thank you.
I'm interested.
Is this the... What am I doing? There you go. Is this the last time I come to the merchant, or do I come back here again? I think I do come back here again, because I buy the Damascus sword, I buy the ring. Yeah, I do come back again. But I got what I really wanted, which is the Damascus sword, which is the best sword you can buy from the librarian before his first inventory update. At some point in the future, what he has available gets updated, and he has, like, more things that he can sell you. He can sell you, like, an ice brand and a fire brand and a lightning brand. He can sell you, like, other stuff. But the Damascus sword is the best sword he can sell at, like, baseline, and it's what I'm going to be using for the rest of the normal castle. I'm not going to get an upgrade until the reverse castle. So this part is actually kind of tricky, because, like, those armored fleamen with the axes can do a pretty good chunk of damage to you, and then the boss that I'm going towards is just weird. Like, sometimes he'll just walk into your holy water and then he dies, but then sometimes he just won't do what you expect him to do, and he'll start, like, shooting projectiles at you and, like, summoning enemies, and it can get, like, completely out of hand. That was pretty fucking cool. I don't remember which of those two things happens here. Let's find out. Okay, he's dead. Yeah. Yeah, if he, like, stands still and starts shooting projectiles, then, like, you're good, because that means he's basically, like, giving you a target for the holy water. But if he just, like, keeps walking when you don't expect him to, then it can get bad, because he actually does hit you for a lot. Oh, come on. Okay. Yeah, it makes sense to not bother going for the broadsword, because I would only have it for the Minotaur werewolf fight, and then I'd immediately go get the Damascus sword afterwards. And I'll pretty much only fight the werewolf and the Minotaur with holy water. Like, holy water does, like, the bulk of the damage, which is why I've been holding on to it this whole time, in case you were curious. Because number one, Alucard is so, like, flexible with his movement, and so, like, fast, that the sub-weapon isn't super important. So you just take the holy water because it just does, like, stupid amounts of damage if it actually ticks a bunch of times on enemies, which it's not that hard to get it to do, because Alucard can throw it from so many different positions, because he has so many movement options. Yeah, this is me trying to Tetra Spirit, because I don't really want to run into that. Come on, there we go. Look at how fucking powerful that is. And you can do, like, a Tetra Spirit or, like, a single Spirit, but I prefer to do the Tetra Spirit whenever I can, just because it's more thorough. And this is a save. This is actually not a save state. This is just a break, because I knew I would have to commentate this, and I can't talk for a whole hour. So there's going to be a pause here, but then I'm going to come right back. And now we move on to the last part, the second half, I suppose I could call it, of the run. I have reviewed the rest of the footage, and I actually made a mistake earlier. I said that my journey to the merchant to buy the Damascus sword was going to be my my first of 2 check-ins with the merchant, but it's actually only 1. Because when I was doing practice runs, I would check back in with the merchant just to spend the last of the gold I had on the Elvish cape. Just because I didn't ever really use it before in my runs, and I liked running around with the green cape. It looked cool, but ultimately I realized that it was like just an extra thing that I didn't have to do. Time I didn't have to spend, and also, I suppose, technically a not quite a violation of my requirements, because I don't know if the cloak gives you any defense. Although, no, it does, doesn't it? Okay, so maybe that's why I didn't do it. Anyway, so yeah, I only visit the merchant once to get the Damascus sword. So where am I going now? Now I think I'm on my way back to go fight Olrox. And this is why I opened up the elevator before, because I'm going to be coming back here to the outer wall a lot. There's some routing in this run that I'm not sure is 100% efficient. And it's not going to be until a little bit after this, so I'll wait until then to point it out and try to, like, explain my thought process. For now, I'm stopping by the keep again, the throne room, to get the Power of Mist upgrade that's in this big open room with the flea riders, because I want it for the Olrox fight. Something that I suspected would be the case when I set out to beat Symphony of the Night with no armor and with, like, minimal like leveling and, like, upgrades, would be that the bosses would be a lot harder. That's actually what I was hoping for, really, because, like, I love boss fights in these games, and in Symphony of the Night the movement is so, like, fast and fluid and responsive. I always felt like the fact that the bosses were mostly unremarkable didn't do it any favors. Either, like, unremarkable or, like, just not really taking full advantage of the fundamentals of the game. Like, something like Galamoth, for example, is not, like, the Galamoth fight is not easy, but it's just kind of like a look for a cheese. It's either like you spend half the fight in mist form, or you just cheese him with, like, the barrel circlet or the Alucard shield plus shield rod, or, like, some goofy shit. So, like, a lot of the bosses are either forgettable because they're too easy, or they're like Galamoth, like, where it's just, like, just barrel circlet, or Beelzebub, where it's like just use the gas cloud, or just, like, you know, it doesn't really. They're more like puzzles, I suppose. But Olrox was a boss that I was really interested in, because it was a boss that I always had a very hard time not getting hit by when I would do these runs casually, to the point that I was somewhat mystified as to how you were actually supposed to fight him. And I have a better idea of it now, after I did a lot of practice. This Olrox fight that's coming up is not going to be a no damage, but it's going to be kind of close to one, and I'm going to try to explain, like, what I didn't understand and the solutions that I eventually like, decided on for the things that were originally mysterious to me. Because a lot of it has to do with, like, it's not Phase 1. Phase 1, as you'll see, I basically cheese Phase 1. But Phase 2 is where the Olrox fight, like, actually starts, and that's where it gets really, chaotic and difficult. Oh yeah, and if you're wondering why I'm not backdashing everywhere, it's because I didn't feel like it. I know backdashing is faster, I just didn't fucking feel like button mashing the whole run. So, sorry. Hey, the devs put a lot of work into Alucard's run cycle, so I'm appreciating it. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say I cheese Phase 1. This is some fucking Dracula's Curse shit. Just, like, stun-locking this guy with holy water. I didn't even think this would work, to be honest, until I tried it, and then I realized that it did. I wasn't, like, counting holy waters there, if you're wondering why he happened to die right when I swung one, like, finally hit him with the sword. I just kind of knew that, generally speaking, if I was low on hearts, which is what I would describe 13 hearts as, I'd say that's low, then that usually means he's close to dying on Phase 1, so I figured, once I was down to, like, 13 hearts, that I could just, like, attack him. So what I just did right there, dive kicking off of Olrox's back to get behind him, that was like the thing with Olrox that I eventually figured out was like this. Because the thing about Olrox is that I just had a really hard time figuring out, like, how are you ever supposed to, like, close distance and attack him? And the answer that I eventually stumbled upon was you're supposed to go behind him when he does this shit, because he'll stand here doing this shit for a long time. And he's basically making everything in front of him inaccessible, but now everything behind, you can still stand behind him and get him. And here, he moved forward what I didn't expect, and he, like, knocks me around, and then he starts doing this stupid shit. And, like, I don't know how you're supposed to not get hit by this, except for the enhanced mist form. Like, this is ridiculous. And, like, even if you have a shield, like, he's shooting so many fireballs and they're coming at you at so many different angles that even if you have a shield out, I really don't think there's anywhere you can stay that would avoid, that would, like, block all those shots. So that's the Olrox fight. It's pretty much just, like, using mist form when he uses the fireballs, getting behind him whenever he does the, like, laser, like, fire shooting up from the ground attack, and then just trying not to walk into his big, herky-jerky, awkward boss model. That's, like, the hardest part, is that, because sometimes he'll just, like, flail his arms around and, like, jump and, like, just be everywhere where you would ever want to be to hit him. And that's what I mean when I talk about, like, the shorter range of the sword being an important trade-off, because, like, if you could fight Olrox, if you could hit Olrox from a more civilized distance, then that fight would be a lot easier, but the fact that you're stuck with the sword means that the fight becomes a lot harder. Because he's just so big. He's so big, and his arms are so long, and his like, he moves around so much, it's just hard to, like, attack him without getting hit. But I found a solution eventually. Excuse me. Olrox. Olrox, star of the hit television show Castlevania Nocturne, which is out now. I guess I should talk about, well, I don't know. Maybe I should talk a little bit about Castlevania Nocturne. I don't know how topical it's going to be by the time this video actually comes out, but at the time that I'm recording this, the show, like, just released, and everybody on the internet is, like, talking about it. I haven't watched it. I'm probably not going to watch it ever. But there were a couple of things about Nocturne that I kind of wanted to, like, just bring up, at least, just to kind of, like, give my opinion as somebody, like I said, who hasn't seen it, but is nevertheless, like, a very big, if very recent Castlevania fan. You know, like, so there's two things about Castlevania Nocturne that people have talked about that I feel like is worth giving my 2 cents on. And it involves two characters. It involves Annette and Maria. And I guess I'll talk about Annette first, just because that's like simpler. Just what I have to say about it. Because there are lots of people out there, you may not know this, but there are people out there whose job it is to get upset whenever video game adaptations, or any adaptation, takes a character who was white originally and makes the character black. There's people whose job it is to go on the internet and get angry about that, and those guys don't take a day off. So I've been able to hear a lot from people who are upset with the fact that Annette in Castlevania Nocturne is black. I don't care. I don't care for 2 reasons. The first reason is because this version of Annette, as far as I can tell, is, like, completely different from the Annette in Rondo of Blood. I love Rondo of Blood, but, you know, Annette in Rondo of Blood is basically just a damsel in distress. Like, her only job in the story, the only thing she ever does in Rondo of Blood is basically just sit in a cell and then get molested by Dracula and then say, Rikta, Daskete, and then that's, like, all she does. So, like, if they want to make a new version of the character who can actually, like, participate in the action and can go on, like, adventures with Richter and isn't just, like, sitting in the castle all day with Dracula, that's fine. And if they're going to make a completely different character and making her, like, Haitian to, like, incorporate the whole Haiti element, the Haitian Revolution, which is not, you know, not an insignificant event in Western history, then fine. The other thing that I wanted to mention, the other reason why I don't really care about the fact that Annette is black is because, you know, here's the thing. The Netflix people have said in the past that they want to just get to Symphony of the Night as fast as possible with their adaptation. And they also then want to do Aria of Sorrow. And, like, Julius Belmont being black when the Aria of Sorrow adaptation happens is just inevitable. It's as inevitable as the sun rising. It's as obvious as the tide coming in. That was, as soon as the words Aria of Sorrow left the Netflix team's mouth, Julius being black in their adaptation became an absolute certainty. So, since that's already inevitably going to happen, I'm just going to talk over this. Since that's already inevitably going to happen, I don't mind them establishing that the Belmont bloodline can change, and that the way that a Belmont in 2030 something looks might be different from how a Belmont in how a Belmont in like the 1800s can look. So at least they're just establishing that, right? And just like on a larger scale, like the thing is, when it comes to like characters being like race swapped in this way, you know, like there's a perception, I think, in a lot of, there are people whose job it is to look at a television show, any piece of media, and try to determine who does this appeal to and who does this not appeal to. And in the minds of Castlevania marketing people, they think who are the people who care about Castlevania, right? Who are the people who actually care about Castlevania, just at a baseline. And in their heads, I think, in their mind, the average Castlevania fan is like a 35-year-old white guy, right? So, and I think in the minds of the Netflix marketing people, like, diversity is good for its own sake in their heads, but it's also good from a marketing angle because their reasoning, which I have to assume is backed up by the data, although of course I don't know, is if we put black characters in this show, then black people will watch it. Now, what's curious about this is that this seems to be the kind of thing where, like, they only think about white and black people in this, because if my channel's demographics have taught me anything, it's that the average Castlevania fan is a 35-year-old Brazilian man. You know what I mean? Like, they're not that, you know, I mean, there are white people in Brazil, but what I'm getting at is that, like, they race swap because they think it's good morally, and they race swap because they think it's good financially. It's not really like one or the other necessarily. It's kind of both. And that's just what they believe. Just like there are people whose job it is to go on the internet and get mad when these things happen, there are people at Netflix who work at Netflix whose job it is to make these things happen. You know what I mean? So like, I don't care really. Like, when the Aria of Sorrow adaptation comes out and Julius Belmont is black, like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And I really wish people who and the thing is that, like, if you're the kind of person who goes on the internet and you get really, really upset when characters get race swapped, like, you are not in a position. It's very hard for like, when you get really mad about Annette in Castlevania Nocturne being black, and you go all over the internet and you talk a bunch of shit, you're helping them. Okay? You are advertising their show for them for free. That's what that is. Like, you're not going to convince anyone. The only kind of people who would be convinced, who would be, like, swayed to not watch the show by you saying there's a black person in it, are already people who don't care. Like, I'm not trying to sound, I'm just saying, like, if you really think it's bad, then the number one thing you could do to hurt the show is to ignore it. And to just never say anything about it. Because there's no such thing, because in the modern world, attention is so important. Attention is the most important marketing currency in the modern world. People are so distracted all the time. Anything you can do to signal boost a show, anything you can do to get a show trending, like, that helps it. right? So if you make a fucking 400 post bait thread on 4chan, guess what? That's 400 people who just are now thinking about Castlevania Nocturne and might watch it. Because they're now thinking about it, they're reminded it exists, they know it's out, they see a bunch of people talking about it, and it's human nature to want to join in on things if there's a perception that there's some big social event happening. You know what I mean? So, like, if you do that, you're not accomplishing what you want to accomplish. In my opinion, anyway. Like, I don't care. You know, that being said, I did see, like a tweet from the Castlevania Nocturne Twitter account, which was maybe the most embarrassing tweet I've ever seen. It was like a screenshot from the show where it was like Annette like talking about Richter, and she was like, "That Richter Belmont guy is useless as fuck." And then the tweet itself said like, "Boy, those Belmonts be stay getting humbled, finna be stay getting humbled by their companions in every timeline." And I'm like, okay, like, first of all, holy shit. Second of all, my understanding is this is not a new timeline. This is just forward in time, so that doesn't make any sense. Third of all, like, it's so embarrassing because it's such it's so transparent. Like, they're saying, "Hey, black people, look at our show, care about our show, watch our show. Look, we wrote a scene where the black character talks shit about the white character. Doesn't that make you want to come watch our show?" Like, it's so embarrassing because they think they need to do that. They think that that's what they need to do to get, like, if it's a good show, if a show is good, people are gonna watch it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. I don't know. Maybe their marketing department knows something I don't, but it just seems horribly embarrassing and patronizing for them, because that's what that tweet is. If you saw it, it's them saying, "We think that the only way we can get black people to watch our show is to draw attention to the fact that we wrote a scene where the black character talks shit about the white character," which is especially funny considering that he's going to be fucking her brains out at some point in the series anyway. So not exactly sincere opposition in that case. But it's just like, so I care when they do shit like that because it's so embarrassing and it's so unhelpful. Because you don't need to justify it like that, you know what I mean? You took a character who was basically like a damsel in distress, basically like a non-character, and you turned her presence in the show into a way to talk about something in real life that's pretty interesting, which is the Haitian Revolution, and also just, you know, like, give her more of an interesting backstory, more of a global, you know, perspective on the plot line. So, like, you don't need to do that. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to, like, go on Twitter and remind everybody that you wrote a black character in your show. Like, we know, we can see that. But we have eyes, okay? Like, it's just this very, like, because they know about those people whose job it is to go on the internet and get mad. And they know that this will rile them up. And it's like, you are not helping. Like, it takes two to tango. You know what I mean? You could say people on the internet should stop being racist, which is completely true, right? But you should also stop playing into that and basically giving them ammunition to go and say all the dumb shit that they always say. You know what I mean? Like I said, it takes two to tango. And I'm not saying that, like, just including a black character is provocation. I'm saying going on Twitter and making the most, like, embarrassing tweet I've ever seen in my life, that is provocation. To the point that, like, I'm not even black and it made me cringe. I don't know. So that's, like, a net. I think it's a lot of people just getting getting very bent out of shape for no reason and doing Netflix's marketing for them. You know, what else is new? As far as Maria goes, the thing about Maria is that I saw that she's, like, some kind of like political leader, in the show, which is very odd. And she's also like 16 instead of being like 12 or whatever. I don't know. Maria, to me, like Rondo of Blood Maria, she is not a focused, driven political leader. Maria from Rondo of Blood is a total goofball who is ridiculously overpowered and sees... Like, Richter sees his quest against Dracula and Rondo as the fulfillment of the ancient duty of his bloodline, and Maria sees it as, like, a fun adventure with all her animal friends to go beat up all the bad guys. So, that's not... Like, Maria's not super smart, you know, because she's not dumb, but she doesn't have to be that smart. Like, what's a... Oh, yeah, so, like, there's an exchange that she has with Dracula, in... I think this is, like... the Dracula X Chronicles. It's kind of like a... I think in the original Rondo, this is basically the same idea, but in the Dracula X Chronicles, the way that it actually plays out is Dracula gives Maria his whole spiel, where he says, oh, you know, I wasn't brought back by my own hand, you know, I'm only here because of humans' desires, and, you know, I'm only here fulfilling the desires of mankind, and she says back to him, like, I don't really get what that means, but you did bad things, and that's bad. And, like, that's Maria. She BTFOs him with her childish innocence and her understanding of right and wrong, and completely rejects his, whatever you'd call it. His excuses, basically, for being evil. That's Maria. It's her being childish is integral in her Rondo incarnation, her being kind of oblivious and not really appreciating the stakes in the same regard is integral. You know, she's not going around issuing political decrees. She's not like a... I could see her being made like a leader in some kind of figurehead position, just because she's probably like really strong and wants to beat up the vampires. But like her like calling people wankers and whatever other stuff they have her doing in the show seems incongruous, and this is exactly what I predicted would happen. I knew that they wouldn't get Maria right. One of my Castlevania 64 videos I mentioned that. But I just wanted to make that point, that like they don't care. And you know, Warren Ellis is gone. Warren Ellis, the guy who went on interviews and said, I don't give a fuck about the games, I just read Wikipedia. He's gone, but other people, everyone else who worked on the last series is still here. All the other people who don't really care are all still there. And, like, here's what I suspect, honestly. I mean, I noticed that Juiced was in the show. I saw he was in there, which was surprising to me. But then again, all it would take to know that Juiced exists is, like, spend 30 minutes, or spend, like, a minute on Wikipedia. So I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. I did hear that Juiced says Maxime died. He said in the show that Maxime got killed by, like, a random vampire, and, like, Maxime from Harmony of Dissonance is not getting killed by any fucking random vampires. I mean, maybe when he was really old, like, then that could happen, but, like, Maxime was fucking overpowered in Harmony of Dissonance. Anyway, I could see that maybe some of the people on the writing staff have played Symphony of the Night, because I also saw that Alucard shows up in Nocturne, like 6 years too early. So I'm just wondering now at this point, is the reason why Maria is 16 because they're just going to do, like, Rondo and Symphony of the Night in one series? Is there not even going to be, like, a time skip? And where the fuck is Shaft? Like, Jesus Christ. Maybe he's going to show up later? I don't know. I just think, like... So yeah, the fact that Alucard shows up 6 years before he's supposed to says to me that there are probably people on the staff who, like, have played Symphony of the Night and nothing else, and they just love Alucard. And that's the case. That's kind of like the Symphony of the Night thing in Castlevania, though, is that, like, This is the game most people have played. Even people who, like, don't play Castlevania have played Symphony of the Night. It's the one that's the most popular. It's the one that's the most, you know, beloved, presumably. It's Symphony of the Night and Aria of Sorrow, so those are the two things those are the two games that maybe they've actually played. I don't know.
So, did you find Richter?
I don't know if he's the one you're looking for, but I found a Belmont.
Really? So he is here.
But the one I saw was the enemy. He was the lord of this castle.
That can't be true. You're wrong. I must go now.
And really, having Alucard show up in Castlevania Nocturne when, like, Richter and Maria and Annette are all, like, kicking around fighting vampires is kind of, like... I think that betrays a lack of restraint, because, like, the only reason... Like, everything that happens in Symphony of the Night is all just narrative contrivance to get Alucard to the castle, because, like, they thought it would be cool. Like, Richter becomes a bad guy, or he gets possessed in Symphony of the Night just because they needed a reason for Alucard to be the protagonist, right? Like, Alucard would be redundant. Like, if Richter Belmont was still around and Dracula's castle came back, he would just come in and fuck everything up again, right? So, like, Alucard is only necessary in the plot if a Belmont is not there. So, I don't get why Alucard would come out of his tomb unless he is of the impression in Castlevania Nocturne, unless he's under the impression that somehow Richter and Maria and this new version of Annette, who can also fight vampires, are not sufficient to fight, who? Exactly? Not even fucking Dracula? I don't know. I think it's just like, Alucard, in the context of Castlevania, kind of reminds me of, like, Charizard from Pokemon, where there's this, like, period of time where, like, Charizard was in fucking everything, and, like, everything Pokemon related, there was just, like, the Charizard show. And that's kind of what Alucard reminds me of, where it's like, oh, look, it's Alucard from Symphony of the Night. He's the best character ever. It's like, okay. Yeah, I remember. Like, what did I say? Lack of restraint. Speaking of lack of restraint, I thought I could just walk right past that sword thing, and, I was wrong. I was so wrong. But ultimately, I don't know. I don't care. Like, I realize I spent fucking, like, 25 minutes talking about Castlevania Nocturne, but ultimately, like, I'm never gonna watch it. I just figured I would, in case anybody's curious, I would just kind of give my thoughts on it. And they basically just boil down to, like, I don't care. Because they don't care. So, why should I? You know? Because I think there's a perception in like the brains or whatever the writers have, where it's like we can either make something for Castlevania fans or we can make something for people who are not fans of Castlevania and who don't know anything about it. Which is why they do like the Game of Thrones like swearing all the time, and that because they don't like care. They don't realize they can do both, or they think they can do both, but it's much more important to them to get the people who are not fans than the people who are fans, because the people who are not fans outnumber them substantially.
That voice, Maria?
I'm sorry. You were right. He has joined forces with the enemy.
So it was a Belmont after all.
But someone must be controlling him. Whatever we do, we can't harm Richter.
But he must be stopped.
I know. Well, here. Take these with you.
What are these?
If you wear these, you can see beyond evil illusions.
Thank you. 'Tis best then if you pray for the soul of your friend.
Yeah, and of course I'm gonna wear holy glasses for the run, because I have to. And because that doesn't increase your defense at all, it only increases your int. Anyway, I really kind of don't want to give this any more energy. No, I have nothing to say. No, we're getting to the next part of the run that's interesting. So good timing for me to be finished when I was. This was the part of the route that I always wondered about the efficiency of, because what I want to do is I want to teleport to the keep where Richter is, but the thing is, so I have two choices. Either number one, I go back up to Olrox's quarters and I take the Olrox teleport, or number two, I go to the outer wall and I take the outer wall teleport to the keep. And the reason that I went with the outer wall teleport is because if I took the Olrox teleport, I would have to go all the way back around to the I'd have to teleport like to the entrance, then to the wall, then to the keep, but here I can just go right from the wall to the keep. But I think I drastically overestimated how important that was. I think it would have been a lot smarter to just go back up to Olrox's quarters, teleport all the way around to the keep, because this is a lot of walking to do to get to the same place. I think I just didn't want to go back to Olrox's quarters. I don't like the music, I don't like the sword, I don't like fucking with the armor guys. I'd rather just run through here and take the elevator. The only downside of this like really focused like beeline route to Dracula is that I don't do the clock tower, which is a shame, not because I think the clock tower is really well designed, but because the clock tower has one of the best music tracks in the game associated with it. Symphony of the Night, I've said before, I think is kind of hit or miss with its soundtrack. A lot of the, because I don't like the music in Olrox's quarters either. It's very like, it's too refined and atmospheric for me. I like things that's a little bit more like energetic and faster paced and more like the music in the classic games. If you ride up that elevator, the lion faces illuminate one by one, and I thought about doing that, but oh well. I think I'm going to keep the holy glasses on for the rest of the run. I don't remember, because the dragon helm that you get in the reverse castle increases your attack power, but also increases your defense, but if I can maintain 0 defense, then it might not be a problem.
I've been waiting for you.
Answer me. Why is a Belmont planning the resurrection of Count Dracula?
Count Dracula rises but once every century, and my role is over. If I can resurrect him, then the battle will last for eternity.
If those are your true feelings, then so be it.
So fighting Richter on 0 defense is scary as fuck, because he does 1 billion damage and he zooms all over the place and he's really good at hitting you even if you're in the air. The one saving grace is that this iteration of Richter can't double jump. So, there are times when you can be like too far above him to really get hit. Look at that shit. Did you see that? I took like 55, 27, 55 in like 2 seconds. So my plan there generally is to just like burn down the orb as fast as possible, because like Richter is so fucking scary on 0 defense. If you're wondering how I'm maintaining 0 defense now, it's because I got the Ring of Ares that I got back in the catacombs that I got while I was busy talking about some worthless Netflix show. The Ring of Ares increases your strength by 24, but reduces your defense by 24. And that was another stipulation that I gave myself for the run, is that as soon as my route takes me near the Ring of Ares, I have to get it, and then I have to wear it for the rest of the run, which is what I'm going to do. Original PS1, baby.
No. What have I done?
Thank you, Alucard, for saving Richter.
Alucard? The same Alucard who fought alongside my ancestor, Trevor Belmont? That was over 300 years ago.
No time for small talk. Is the person who controlled you in that castle over there?
Yes, I think so.
Maria, take Richter and leave here. I'll finish this.
All right. Good luck.
Fun fact, by the way, there was a cut boss fight with... So in the Saturn version of Symphony of the Night, which generally I'd say is not as good, the original Saturn version is not almost unplayable because of how bad the loading times are, and because every time you have to check the map screen, it incurs another loading screen. There's a ROM hack that reduces some of the load times, makes it a little bit better, but the load times are still worse, in my opinion, than the PS1 version by a pretty significant margin. So the Saturn version overall is not as good as the PS1 version, in my opinion, because the extra things that it adds are not worth the downsides. But I bring this up because in the Saturn version, there's a boss fight with Maria, where, like, before she gives you the holy glasses, she's like, let's see if you're good enough, and she fights you, and that Maria boss fight is based off of an unused Maria boss fight that was planned to be in the base game. But the circumstances were very different. In the Saturn version, like I just said, she fights you basically to test you before you go and fight Richter. But originally, because there's unused dialogue lines that people have found in the game that, like, piece this together. Originally, I think it was supposed to be like an alternate bad ending with the fight against Richter, where, like, a thing could happen where, like, you could beat Richter, but then Shaft would, like, possess Maria instead, or, like, you'd fight, like, an evil version, or he would unleash, like, some kind of evil version of Maria somehow. That's what the dialogue seems to imply. So that's an interesting little tidbit, because Maria is like a funny character. One of the biggest, like, question marks, really, over Maria as a character, because she's a very strange character in just a lot of ways. But in Rondo of Blood, she has this, like, special attack called the Guardian Knuckle, where she'll summon, like, what looks kind of like an evil version of herself to, like, do a bunch of damage. So there's this suggestion. I think in Rondo it's just a JoJo reference, but nonetheless, they were going to expand on that idea in Symphony of the Night and didn't quite. And people have also theorized that that's why Maria's moveset in the Saturn Symphony of the Night is so completely different from what Rondo Maria is like, because it's based on the boss fight version of Maria, which basically just, like, punches and flies around, whereas the Dracula X Chronicles, the PSP Symphony of the Night Maria mode, is closer to Rondo, but sucks because Maria doesn't do any damage. Saturn Maria is also awkward because Saturn Maria mode and Richter mode in every version of Symphony of the Night has the same problem, which is that you have to double tap to run. That old Circle of the Moon gem. This is, like, just the best way to get through the clock tower. There's no reason to ever fuck with these guys, because those Medusa heads can petrify you, and when you get petrified, you take double damage. And the reverse castle can actually be, like, moderately dangerous, even if you're doing a normal run. So going into the reverse castle with 0 defense is actually really dangerous. And when you getting out of the reverse throne room, you can either go to the clock tower, or you can go through the reverse chapel. I prefer the clock tower because you can just long form mist through all those things, and then more importantly, this spits you out at the reverse wall, which is where the Frankenstein boss is, and the Frankenstein boss gives you the best Dracula relic, which is the Dracula's claw that increases your strength. So if you go this way first, you can get more attack power faster. And I am skipping the Dragon Helm, which makes sense because I think getting it would probably maybe technically be contrary to my stipulations. But more generally, I would just have to go out of my way to get it and kill 2, like, skeleton horse riders, and I just didn't feel like it. This is funny. I visit a save station here purely to restore my MP because I want to I want to mist form through a lot of the bullshit that happens up here. And so, now that I'm in the reverse castle, I'll talk a little bit more about the reverse castle generally. A lot of people, including myself, think that the reverse castle is not really that good compared to the main game. To be fair, Symphony of the Night is such a good game that the first part of it is setting a very high standard, but nonetheless, I think the reverse castle is kind of a really kind of a dud. Even though it's a very cool idea and it's iconic and everything, the issue is just in traversing it, because bat form is just not fun to move around in. It's very slow, it's very vulnerable. Mist form is less vulnerable, but it's even slower. And something that I've consistently praised about Symphony of the Night as one of its best features is the movement and the fluidity and the speed and the pacing. But the reverse castle grinds that to a screeching halt, and you have to spend so much time just flapping around. That's the biggest issue with it. I do like that it's a pretty big difficulty spike, though. Like, some of the enemies in the reverse castle are actually pretty dangerous. And there's some dangerous, like, combat situations. So it starts to feel a little bit more like a classic Castlevania game. This boss took a while for me to figure out. It turns out, I guess, there's, like, I have, like, two plans. One plan is to, like, do this, these drive-by attacks whenever he rolls nearby. But the thing that I'm really hoping he'll do is I'm hoping he'll just stand still in the middle long enough for me to rack up a bunch of holy water damage, but that doesn't ever seem to happen. And I think it might be because I'm too far away from him. Like, I'm pretty happy that was a no damage, by the way. It seems like if you get too far away from him, that's when he does the roll, but, like, again, the sword only has so much reach, that hammer's really big. I was, like, too nervous to get too close to him and try to throw the holy water. But it all worked out. I got a no damage, so I'm happy. These guys can drop a really funny item. I forget what it's called. I think it's called, like, the game is over ring, and it's, like, a ring that gives you, like, plus 30 to all your stats or something hilarious like that. I don't know why that shit is in this game. Like, Symphony of the Night is the last game that needs, like, a random drop that makes you twice as strong, because you're already overpowered. Another problem with the reverse castle is that a big chunk of the reverse castle plays the same music track. This one that's playing right now, that's honestly not very good in my opinion. Like, it does a few things, but you mostly just end up hearing these same organ chords over and over again, which is boring. That was close. But this is relatively good as far as the reverse castle goes, because I'm actually running through it and I'm not just in bat form the whole time. In bat form or in mist form. So my order is I'm gonna go. I kill the bat, of course, to get the int. Then the int buff with Dracula's ring. Then I kill Frankenstein to get the strength buff. So now I buffed my 2 damage dealing stats, which is important. And now I'm gonna go fight Death in the catacombs. And then the rest of the route is going to be I kill Death in the catacombs, then I teleport back up to the throne room, go to the chapel, kill Medusa, go to reverse Olrox, kill the mummy, then go to Dracula. So that's what the rest of the route is pretty much going to be. But in the reverse caverns, I have a very interesting, I have a very important weapon to pick up, which I'll talk about when I get to it, which should be shortly. I don't mind this song. Actually, this song's also kind of annoying. I don't know. It's very tranquil, but the thing is that the reverse caverns are actually really scary. So it's kind of incongruous, or incongruent, whichever one. At least I think some of the enemies in the reverse caverns are pretty scary. Like, even on 0 defense they're scary, but on 0 defense, like these rock guys, if that rock actually hits you, you take like 80 damage. Which, since I have 248 HP, is a third of my health. But fortunately, and those blue fucking Alreuns, or whatever they're called, Allura Une or whatever, the flower ladies are so fucking hard to fight. Like, it's so hard to close distance and also not get hit by, like, the rose thorns and, like, kill them before they kill you and, like, figure out where a safe place to stand is, because, like, they summon all the vines. That means there's really only a couple of safe places where you can stand, and then, like, you have to find the right place to stand, then you have to, like, react correctly to their thorns that they throw, or the rose, like, darts that they throw, which can go in a wide arc, which can sometimes go around your shield. So even if you're, like, crouching with a shield up, sometimes the darts will still, like, hit your head and kill you. So, like, those flower ladies are so fucking scary to fight. And that's why the enhanced mist form is so important. If you're wondering why I got the super boots, by the way, this part specifically is why I went out of my way to do it. Number one, the super boots and using the super jump is just a faster way to cover ground vertically than bat form in a lot of cases. Secondly, it's specifically for getting through that waterfall spot, because otherwise I would need I don't know, I would need the relic that stops you from taking damage, I think, to make that work. Or the relic that gives you, like, lets you swim in dog form or something, I don't remember. So I just got the Osafune Katana. The Osafune Katana is similar to the Ring of Ares, where it gives you a big strength buff, and also at the cost of a nerf to your defense, but more importantly, it lets me do that. It has two different special attacks. One attack is this one right here, which is down, forward, and attack, where you teleport forward. As you can see, when you're teleporting, you're invincible, and you do a bunch of damage to whatever's in front of you. Also want to point out that I'm now one-shotting those guys. I'm fairly sure that when I had the Luminous on a moment ago, I was three-shotting them, so this thing does a huge chunk of damage at the cost of basically ensuring that you're never going to have more than 0 health for the rest of the game if you pair it with the Ring of Ares. But pairing it with the Ring of Ares is also necessary, I think, to get the full benefit from it, because a mechanic that I mentioned a while ago is that every weapon has its own damage stat, and your strength stat needs to be equal to the damage stat to get the full benefit from it and not incur any kind of penalty. So you kind of want the Ring of Ares paired with it to make sure you're getting the full benefit, and it creates this more glass cannon playstyle that I think is more engaging and more fun.
In the name of your father, cease this foolishness.
Not while there's a breath in my body.
Then for the master, I'll feast on your soul this night.
Death is pathetic. This is often remarked upon about Symphony of the Night death, that, I mean, the classic Castlevania Grim Reaper fights are just kind of hard acts to follow, but I actually managed to take a lot of damage on this guy. I get hit in phase 1, because he's not, like, where I want him to be, and then I get hit again here, because I just didn't really expect him to move down that far when he did his little, his, like, downward slash. So, he just didn't really end up in the position I wanted him to be. Because he, like, drifts around a lot when you hit him, and then when he transforms, he also drifts around a lot. Optimally, I would want him to be, like, at a perfect distance away from one of those platforms, so I can do, like, the down-forward special Osafune Katana attack to hit him and rack up a bunch of damage. But if he doesn't do that, I kind of have to, like, improvise and, like weave around him and risk, clipping one of his scythes. So I didn't really have a formal strategy for death, because I didn't really need one. Even if I'm playing against him on 0 defense, he doesn't have that much health. And I said glass cannon a second ago, referencing like Alucard with the Ring of Ares and the Osafune Katana, but like there's only so glass that Alucard can ever be, because he still has plenty of HP. Even if I'm like not fighting optional bosses, even if I'm not going out of my way to get energy tanks, even if I'm not exploring like half of the original castle, I'm still pretty respectably tanky. Like I was taking like 60 and then 70 damage there, which, like, let's say if I'm taking like 70 a hit, I think I went into that fight with like 250. So that's 4 hits to die, which is Chronicles / like Dracula's Curse / C1 second loop, which is about what I would want, to be honest. Roughly in the ballpark of the difficulty that I'm looking for. And I have no idea why sometimes the forward special Osafune attack one-shots the tombstones, and sometimes it takes like 3 of these to kill them. I really don't know. That was an accident. I did not mean to do that. And I didn't even position myself correctly to... If all 3 of those fireballs had hit, I'm certain it would have died, because I think the reason why it's taking so many hits to kill them in the first place is because they have a ton of defense. But I think magic does more damage to them? Is that even a thing in Symphony of the Night? Maybe it isn't. I don't know. I hate this part. I really don't like this part of the chapel. This was kind of cocky. Because you'll notice I only have like 144 health, and these things do... Yeah, they can do a lot of damage, and here I pussy out and I back up to the save station. Which I didn't really want to do. I kind of like the idea of like only ever using save stations that I happened upon naturally, and then getting all the rest of my health from like energy tanks, or like boss kills, because every time you kill a boss it increases your... In the reverse castle it increases your max HP by a certain amount, which also increases your HP in general. It's like a heal for that amount, basically. But there I pussied out. And I'd already broken that earlier by going to a save station for the MP boost in the reverse wall anyway. Here's the Medusa boss with the gigantic ass, dead in 2 seconds. Another reason to go bat Frankenstein death and then come back up here is that the sooner you get into the caverns, the sooner you can get the Osafane Katana, and then whatever bosses you fight after that, you will have the benefit of that weapon to deal with them. So it's like, would you rather have the Osafane Katana for Frankenstein, who rolls around all over the place, or for Medusa, who literally just stands still? And the answer is Medusa. I have no idea what speedrunners do. I thought about looking up speedrun for this game in preparation for this like more streamlined route and this run, but I decided not to. Excuse me. I like this part because I get to just like I get to kill really tanky enemies with the Osafane Katana special attack, which I think is really cool. I almost wish there was like I wish I could play the whole game with this weapon, honestly. Like, it's almost a shame, because like the reverse castle, like normally I would be happy to get out of the reverse castle as quickly as possible, but I feel like it's kind of a shame to only have like the last like 20 minutes of the run be with this like really awesome weapon. It's unfortunate, but in the end, but it fits like the RPG theming of Symphony of the Night, where it's like you feel more powerful at the end, you have tools at the end that you didn't have at the beginning. I guess it works out. This zone is called Deathwing's Lair instead of like Reverse Olrox's Quarters, because there's no Reverse Olrox here. But there's no Deathwing either. I don't know if they meant to have like have you fight a wyvern boss in the big open courtyard or what, but all that's here is a mummy who dies in about 0.5 seconds. And the reason that happens is because, number one, the holy water does 1 billion damage and is genuinely overpowered in Symphony of the Night, as it is in C1 and C3. And then number two, the mummy is weak to holy damage and fire damage, and the holy water does holy damage and fire damage. So he just gets melted. I like the background here. I like the purple clouds and like the moon. But like actually trying to navigate this room is a nightmare, because you have to fly around in bat form and there's like Medusa heads everywhere, which is like the thing about Symphony of the Night that like it's kind of its Achilles heel, is when you're in situations where you have to fly around in bat form. Something that I said about Super Castlevania 4 when I was talking about the whip swinging, like swinging from grapple points in Super Castlevania 4, is that movement options in games, like advanced movement, should be fun. It should be something that the player wants to do, not something that the player feels like they have to do. But bat form is not it's very like it's very like good functionally, because it's just like now you can fly, now you can go anywhere. It's good from the standpoint of like an exploration tool, but the reverse castle just makes you use it too much, in my opinion. And I'm not good at doing the super jump, so the super jump isn't like a perfect substitute, because it involves doing a an input combo. It's like up, it's like down, up, jump, and for some reason I'm way worse at doing that than I am at doing the Symphony special attack. Maybe I just have a better sense of rhythm for the Symphony attack. So this is actually really close. Something happens here. So I don't want to fight this guy because he does 1,000,000 damage, and even though I'm almost at the top of the screen, he like almost hits me. Because what he does there is he'll like lift his sword way up into the air and then like bring it down, but I'm way up into the air above him, so if I was really, really careful, I would have stayed in mist form the whole time. I mean, obviously I would have been fine either way, but I didn't like how close that was when I finally got here. Because if I die here, keep in mind, this is all like one run. So if I die at the very end, that's like an hour and like 25 or like 30 minutes down the drain, which I don't want. "13 bells, by the way." Here, I did something I don't know if I necessarily needed to do or not. I picked up the cross, purely for the Dracula fight. I'm only going to be able to use it once, because every usage of the cross is 100 hearts, and I only have 130. I still don't really know if that was... It was probably the best sub-weapon I could have used. I don't know. I don't know that much like advanced like tech for Symphony of the Night. Like I said, I didn't watch any speedruns for this. I'm just kind of going off of like what I know and what I've noticed works for me.
You have done well in making it this far. I would expect no less from the son of our master.
So you are the one who was controlling Belmont?
Yes. I am the dark priest called Shaft. This world must be cleansed in the forge of chaos.
Why did you make Belmont lord of this castle?
For centuries, vampire hunters have defeated evil with holy power. But if two vampire hunters were to fight each other...
But Belmont's power is supreme among vampire hunters. None other could defeat him.
Exactly. That's why I removed him as a threat, by making him into lord of this castle.
But your plan has failed.
Has it indeed? We'll see what happens after I destroy your weak human side.
Okay, so the Shaft fight, was one that, like the Aurochs fight, I like couldn't figure out how to, like, how am I ever gonna no damage with this? This guy just like hits you with everything, and then I was like, oh wait, I have like an invincibility button.
Oh! No!
You claim to love the darkness. Go then and dwell there for all eternity.
But my goal is achieved. Count Dracula has come to purify this corrupt world with the searing flames of chaos.
Father.
Well met, my son. It's been a long time.
I was hoping we would not see each other again. I can't allow you to leave here, Father.
You have ever been the ally of humans. Have you forgotten what they did to your mother?
Think you I would forget such a thing? No, but neither do I seek revenge against them.
Still uttering the same nonsense. No matter. Now is the time to put aside your weak human side and join me in remaking this world!
Dracula! In the name of my mother, I will defeat you again.
Okay, so this fight is honestly the whole reason I did this, because I was never happy with how my Dracula fights turned out in my, like, Symphony of the Night footage I originally uploaded. I never learned the fight, I never, like, figured it out. And here, unfortunately, I fuck it up again. I had a strat, but I just didn't execute it correctly, which I'm very upset about. So, like, the key with the Dracula fight is, like, you bait him into swiping one side of him, and then, like, when he's, like, decided he's gonna do that, once he's decided he's gonna swipe to the left, you, like, hop to the right, and then once he's decided he's gonna swipe the right side, you hop over to the left. This is what I wanted the cross for, just so that way I'm doing some damage to him while I'm sitting here in mist form to not get hit by these like skulls and by their big triangle attack. But unfortunately, I just didn't. I think I moved too early during the first cycle, which is why I got hit.
Go back whence you came. Trouble the soul of my mother no more.
How? How is it that I've been so defeated?
You have been doomed ever since you lost the ability to love.
Sarcasm. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the world and loses his own soul? Matthew 16:26, I believe. Tell me, what were Lisa's last words?
She said, do not hate humans. If you cannot live with them, then at least do them no harm. For theirs is already a hard lot. She also said to tell you that she would love you for all of eternity.
Lisa, forgive me. Farewell, my son.
Like, I think I thought I had baited him over to the left, but I hadn't yet, so I moved back over to the right, and then he hit me. And that was only the second strat, actually, that I had in mind for the Dracula fight. The first strat that I tried just involved spamming the Osafane Katana's, like, special teleport attack, and, like, hoping that, like, it lined up so that I was always invincible whenever he swiped at me with his claws. But, like, all that... the problem with that strat is, like, all it took was one fucked up input on my part, and I would just get, like, knocked around all over the place and take... As you see, he hits you pretty hard there. I think I went in with, like, 350, and he does about 70, so that's 5 hits to die, which is, I think, Rondo has, like, 5 hits to die, so, again, that's like a level of challenge that I'm comfortable with. But it's that makes it, like, suitably dangerous, but I really wish that had been a no damage, and I'm kind of upset that it wasn't, but at least I know damage Shaft, who is simpler because he dies faster, but I really, really wish that had been a no damage, because that's kind of like what I really wanted going back to this, but oh well, it's not perfect.
So you made it.
Alucard!
Alucard!
I'm glad you're all right.
I'm sorry. 'Tis my fault you had to fight your own father.
Fear not. I had my own reasons for destroying him.
It must have been painful for you.
Indeed. But you must always remember that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
I understand.
Alucard, what will you do now?
The blood that flows in my veins is cursed. 'Twould be best for this world if I were to disappear forever.
I see.
Farewell then. We'll not meet again.
Alucard?
Don't you want to go after him, Maria?
No, it's best this way. I can't ease his torment. Someday, perhaps, we will meet again. And on that day, maybe.
I see.
Let's go. Everyone's waiting for us.
Yes, let's get out of here.
He delivers that line, "Let's get out of here," like they're in impending peril, but they are not. The peril is past. And because I didn't spend however much time it would have taken, like, banging my head against walls and ceilings and going everywhere to get 196% map completion, Maria doesn't go after Alucard in the end, but oh well. I got to play the fun parts of the game. So, that's Symphony of the Night. I gotta say, this is a much more fun way to play the game than, like, than like the full exploratory version of it, in my opinion. And the thing is that like Symphony of the Night is a strange game in a lot of ways. It's a game that is really kind of bolstered by its presentation, by its visuals, by like its soundtrack. Even though I'm not a big fan of the soundtrack, I kind of get the tone it's going for, and I think it accomplishes that tone really well. It's a game that's not necessarily built to be replayed over and over again, although people do that. I mean, people have been playing it over and over again for like 15 years. But that's what I was going into this with. Like, is there a way that I can go in and play this game, like, just if I feel like playing the game and just experiencing like the most fun parts of it? Is there some run that I can construct that makes it, that like cuts the fat and makes it more engaging, makes it more interesting, makes me really like feel more involved with the gameplay and feel like I'm taking further advantage of like the mechanics, feel like my skill is being tested more? Can I do that? The answer is yes. I think this... Excuse me, sorry. I think this accomplishes that pretty well. It's just like... It's just tough, because at this point my level of familiarity with the game means that a lot of the early game, like before I have access to like the dive kick or like the Osafane Katana or anything like special or extra, still feels pretty, vanilla. Like, you're just, you know... You're Mr. Vampire Man with a sword, and it's all pretty, like, relatively basic. On my level of expertise. I know there's tons of insane, like, tech with this game. There's stuff that, like, speedrunners do. All these glitches. I don't really care about any of that. There's crazy magic spells, too, like the Wing Rush has some insane input you have to do for it. I don't care, man. I'm just, you know... I would, like, extra combat, extra, like, movement stuff, to me, shouldn't, like, well, whatever. I was about to talk myself into a contradiction where I was gonna say, like, I'd rather just, like, jump around and attack, but I just complained 20 seconds ago about saying that's all the early game feels like, but I think that's just more because I'm so used to the game at this point. I played this game so much. And the thing is that, like, the appeal of the game is really more in, like, the exploration and the mood and the atmosphere, and not necessarily, like, the intricacies of the gameplay, which is, this is all, like, a very roundabout way of saying I feel like I succeeded in creating what I wanted to create with this run, which was a version of the game, a run of the game that was more focused on, that was more, like, tighter and faster paced and focused on, like, the combat, and that's what I did. And I like this game a lot. Like, this game deserves its reputation. I do kind of wish that it's a little bit of a bully. It's a little bit of like a 400-pound, 600, 800-pound gorilla in the Castlevania franchise, because, like, there are people out there who say, like, oh, if you want to get into the Castlevania franchise, you should play Symphony of the Night first. And I'm like, no, go back and play the classic ones. Go play C1, go play C3, go play Bloodlines, like, go play Rondo. Like, there's a whole half of the franchise that you'd be like removing yourself from if you only played the Igavanias. You should try to experience all of it. So, there's a modicum of resentment on my part for that, but I won't let that affect my opinion of the game as a whole. Really good Igavania. Not the best Igavania, in my opinion, which I'll get into more in my next video. I'm almost done. I'm in the home stretch. You guys hang in there, and keep on Earth rocking.